Behind the flashy purple Cadillac and outrageous pimp costumes lies one of cinema's most bizarre career transformations and tragic Hollywood stories. From Sesame Street's beloved Gordon to a dying actress's final performance, Willie Dynamite hides secrets that are stranger than its flamboyant fiction. Fact 1. Sesame Street's Gordon was a pimp first. In one of Hollywood's most shocking career transformations, Roscoe Orman went from playing a ruthless street pimp to becoming one of children's television's most beloved father figures within the span of just 1 year. Orman filmed Willie Dynamite in 1973, playing the title character who runs a prostitution ring in New York City, while wearing outrageous fur coats and driving a custom purple Cadillac. The film featured Orman in scenes where he threatens women, deals drugs, and engages in violent confrontations with rival pimps and corrupt police officers. Just months after wrapping production on this gritty blaxploitation film, Orman found himself auditioning for a completely different kind of role. Sesame Street director Stan Lathan informed him about auditions for the character of Gordon. And Orman's friend Matt Robinson, who had previously played Gordon, also recommended he try out for the part. During his audition, Orman was one of 3 finalists alongside David Downing and Robert Guillaume. He later recalled that during his screen test with Oscar the Grouch, he kept looking at puppeteer Carol Spinney instead of the puppet itself, but his natural chemistry with the preschool children on set impressed the producers. Orman officially joined the Sesame Street cast in 1974, becoming the 3rd actor to portray Gordon Robinson. The timing created an almost surreal situation where Willie Dynamite was released in theaters in January 1974, the same year that families across America began welcoming Orman into their homes as the wholesome, nurturing Gordon. Parents watching Sesame Street with their children had no idea that their trusted neighborhood friend had recently been on screen as one of cinema's most memorable pimps, complete with diamond-studded jewelry and a stable of 7 women working the streets of Manhattan. Fact 2. Diana Sands' heartbreaking final performance. Diana Sands delivered what would become her final completed film performance while secretly battling a devastating illness that would claim her life just months later. The accomplished Broadway actress, who had earned critical acclaim for her role in A Raisin in the Sun alongside Sidney Poitier, was already suffering from pancreatic cancer during the filming of Willie Dynamite in early 1973, though she kept her condition private from most of the cast and crew. In the film, Sands played Cora Williams, a former prostitute turned social worker who becomes determined to rescue Willie's women from street life and bring down his operation. Her character serves as the movie's moral center, delivering powerful speeches about women's liberation and self-determination with a conviction that now seems even more poignant given what she was enduring behind the scenes. Sands brought her considerable stage training to the role, matching Roscoe Orman's energy in their confrontational scenes while portraying Cora as both tough and compassionate. After completing Willie Dynamite, Sands began work on another film called Claudine, where she was set to star opposite James Earl Jones in Harlem. However, just 1 week into filming in late August 1973, she collapsed on set and was rushed to a local hospital. During emergency surgery, doctors discovered the full extent of her cancer, which had spread throughout her abdomen. Realizing she was too ill to continue, Sands personally suggested that her longtime friend Diahann Carroll replace her in the role, and the producers agreed to recast the part. Diana Sands passed away on September 21, 1973, at Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York City. She was just 39 years old. Willie Dynamite premiered at the Woods Theater in Chicago 3 months later, on December 19, 1973, making it her final complete performance that audiences would ever see. Fact 3. 9 Sanford and Son actors appeared. Willie Dynamite accidentally created one of television's most unlikely reunions by casting 9 actors who had appeared on the hit NBC sitcom Sanford and Son, turning this gritty street drama into an unexpected gathering of familiar faces from Fred Sanford's junkyard world. The overlap happened because both productions were filming around the same time in the early 1970s, when many African-American actors were working regularly between television guest spots and blaxploitation films to build their careers. The most prominent Sanford and Son connection was Roscoe Orman himself, who had guest starred in Season 5, Episode 3 of the comedy series before landing the title role in Willie Dynamite. Thalmus Rasulala, who played the determined district attorney Robert Daniels in the film, had appeared in multiple episodes starting with Season 2 and Episode 6, and continued making appearances throughout the show's run. Albert Hall, who portrayed the righteous Muslim detective Pointer chasing Willie through the streets, had guest starred in Season 5, Episode 5 of the sitcom. Perhaps most notably, Nathaniel Taylor appeared in Willie Dynamite playing a character named Sugar, though the film's end credits mistakenly listed him as Richard Lawson. Taylor was already famous to television audiences as Rollo Lawson, Lamont's best friend and frequent visitor to the Sanford junkyard, appearing in dozens of episodes starting in Season 2. The other Sanford and Son veterans included Royce Wallace, who played Willie's church-going mother in the film but had appeared in Season 1, Episode 3 of the sitcom, plus Davis Roberts, Robert Doquey, George Weiner, and Clarice Taylor, who each brought their own small but memorable contributions to both productions. This casting overlap created a strange viewing experience, where audiences familiar with Sanford and Son would recognize multiple actors playing dramatically different characters in much more serious and violent situations than anything Fred Sanford ever encountered. Fact 4. Illegal license plates made movie history. Willie Dynamite's most iconic visual element was also completely against the law in every single state across America, as the film's production team created custom license plates that would have gotten any real driver pulled over immediately. The purple Cadillac Eldorado featured a front license plate reading simply Willie and a rear plate displaying Dynamite, creating a clever way to spell out the character's full street name across his pimped-out ride. However, this creative decision violated fundamental motor vehicle regulations that require both front and rear license plates to display identical letter and number configurations. No state in America, including New York where the film was supposedly set, has ever allowed drivers to use two different vanity plates with separate name identifiers on the same vehicle. The front and rear plates must always match exactly, whether they show standard state-issued combinations or personalized vanity messages that drivers pay extra fees to obtain. The production team had these custom plates specially manufactured just for the movie, knowing full well they could never be legally registered or driven on public roads. The prop department created them purely for visual impact, understanding that audiences would immediately grasp Willie's identity and ego through this bold display of his street name stretched across his car. The illegal plates became so memorable that they appeared prominently in the film's opening sequence, where Martha Reeves sings the theme song while Willie cruises through Midtown Manhattan, showing off his ride to potential customers and rivals. This attention-grabbing detail perfectly captured Willie's character as someone who operates outside the law and flaunts conventional rules, even in something as basic as vehicle registration. The plate served as a visual metaphor for Willie's entire lifestyle, where he bends or breaks regulations to suit his own purposes, whether dealing with license plates, tax laws, or the criminal justice system that constantly pursues him throughout the film. Fact 5. Los Angeles phone booth in New York. One of Willie Dynamite's most glaring production mistakes occurs at the 16-minute and 30-second mark, when a crucial plot phone call accidentally reveals that the filmmakers were actually shooting in California rather than New York City as the story requires. During this scene, Honey calls Willie to inform him that Passion has been arrested and needs bail money, but eagle-eyed viewers can spot a small sign next to the coin slot on the payphone that clearly reads, "You can dial any number in the Los Angeles area." This geographic error creates a jarring moment for anyone paying close attention, since the entire film is supposed to take place in Manhattan, where Willie operates his prostitution business from Midtown hotels and cruises the streets in his purple Cadillac. The phone booth scene is particularly important to the plot because it sets up Willie's rescue mission to bail out his newest worker, leading to his first major confrontation with social worker Cora Williams at the courthouse. The mistake happened because Universal Pictures shot many of the film's interior and street scenes on studio backlots and locations around Los Angeles, even though the story demanded a New York setting. While the production did film some exterior shots in actual Manhattan locations to establish the urban atmosphere, much of the movie was completed in California for budget and logistical reasons. The phone company signs were standard equipment that came with the Los Angeles area payphones, and apparently no one in the props department thought to cover or replace the telltale regional identifier. This type of continuity error was fairly common in 1970s films, when productions frequently moved between multiple cities and sound stages to control costs. However, the specific mention of Los Angeles in a film explicitly set in New York makes this particular mistake stand out as one of the more obvious geographical slip-ups in blaxploitation cinema history. Fact 6. Wrong actor credited in end credits. Willie Dynamite contains a significant casting error that has persisted for over 50 years, with the film's ending credits incorrectly listing Richard Lawson as the actor who played the character Sugar, when it was actually Nathaniel Taylor who performed the role throughout the entire movie. This mix-up creates confusion for viewers trying to identify the familiar face they recognize from television, since Taylor was already well known to audiences as Rollo Lawson, Lamont's best friend on the popular sitcom Sanford and Son. The mistake becomes particularly noticeable because Taylor had a distinctive appearance and acting style that regular television viewers would immediately recognize from his recurring role on the NBC comedy series. He had been playing Rollo since season 2 of Sanford and Son, appearing in dozens of episodes as the laid-back friend who frequently visited Fred and Lamont's junkyard to hang out and get into various schemes and adventures. Richard Lawson, the actor mistakenly credited for Taylor's work, was a completely different performer who had no involvement in Willie Dynamite whatsoever. Lawson would later become known for his roles in films like Poltergeist and the television series Dynasty, but he never appeared in this blaxploitation film despite what the credits claim. The error likely occurred during post-production when someone in the editing or credits department confused the two actors' names, possibly because both were African-American performers working in similar projects during the early 1970s. Once the credits were finalized and the film was released, the mistake became permanently embedded in the movie's official record, appearing on every print, video release, and streaming version that followed. This type of clerical error was more common in the era before computerized databases and careful record-keeping, when film credits were often assembled manually and mistakes could easily slip through the final review process. Fact 7. First film from future Jaws producers. Willie Dynamite holds the distinction of being the very first production from the newly formed Zanuck Brown Company, marking the beginning of what would become one of Hollywood's most successful producing partnerships. Richard D. Zanuck, son of legendary movie mogul Darryl F. Zanuck, had recently partnered with David Brown to form their independent production company, and they chose this gritty blaxploitation film as their inaugural project to test the waters of their collaboration. The timing of Willie Dynamite's production reveals just how dramatically the duo's career trajectory would change within a few short years. While they were putting together this street-level drama about pimps and prostitutes in New York City, Zanuck and Brown were simultaneously developing a much more mainstream project called The Sting, which would go on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1973. The contrast between these two films could hardly have been more extreme, showcasing the producers' willingness to work across completely different genres and budget levels. After Willie Dynamite, the Zanuck-Brown partnership would go on to produce some of the most influential blockbusters in cinema history. Their next major success came with Jaws in 1975, which essentially created the modern summer blockbuster and made Steven Spielberg a household name. They followed this triumph with The Verdict, Cocoon, and Driving Miss Daisy, among other critically acclaimed and commercially successful films. Looking back, Willie Dynamite represents a fascinating footnote in Hollywood history, serving as the humble beginning for producers who would later reshape the entire film industry. The low-budget blaxploitation film grossed $54,585 in its first week at the Woods Theater in Chicago, a modest start for a partnership that would eventually generate hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office with their later productions. Fact 8. Martha Reeves sang the theme song. The infectious Willie D theme song that opens Willie Dynamite was performed by none other than Martha Reeves, the legendary lead singer of Martha and the Vandellas, bringing authentic Motown star power to this gritty street film. Reeves had already established herself as one of the most recognizable voices in popular music through hits like Dancing in the Street, Heat Wave, and Nowhere to Run during the peak years of Berry Gordy's Motown Records empire in Detroit. The collaboration between Reeves and the film's music team created one of blaxploitation cinema's most memorable opening sequences, where her powerful vocals accompany Willie's dramatic entrance as he cruises through Manhattan in his purple Cadillac. The song was composed by director Gilbert Moses, working alongside jazz legend J.J. Johnson, who provided the film's complete musical score and brought his considerable experience from recording with Miles Davis and other bebop pioneers to this urban soundtrack. Martha Reeves actually recorded 2 songs for the Willie Dynamite soundtrack album, with King Midas serving as a companion piece to the main theme. Her involvement in the project represented a fascinating crossover between the polished Motown sound and the raw energy of blaxploitation films, demonstrating how major recording artists were beginning to explore opportunities in this emerging genre during the early 1970s. The Willie D theme song became so iconic that it was later referenced and sampled in hip-hop music, with rapper Willie D of the Ghetto Boys taking his stage name directly from the film's title character. The song's lyrics describe Willie's business operations and his 7 women working the hotels, setting up the entire story, while Reeves's vocals give the opening credits an almost celebration-like quality that contrasts sharply with the darker themes that develop throughout the rest of the movie. Fact 9. The purple Cadillac had multiple movie lives. Willie's iconic purple 1971 Cadillac Fleetwood Eldorado enjoyed a remarkable Hollywood career that extended far beyond its starring role in Willie Dynamite, appearing in several other major productions and becoming one of the most recognizable custom cars in film history. The vehicle was originally modified by Gene Winfield, a legendary Hollywood car customizer who had already built vehicles for films like Blade Runner and television shows, including the Beverly Hillbillies and Batman. Before Willie Dynamite even reached theaters, the same Eldorado appeared in Magnum Force, the 1973 Dirty Harry sequel starring Clint Eastwood, though it was repainted pink for that production. The car's transformation from purple pimp mobile to pink getaway vehicle demonstrates how studios recycled expensive custom automobiles between different projects to maximize their investment in these elaborate movie props. Winfield's modifications to the Eldorado were extensive and eye-catching, including an oversized custom grille, gold-colored trim throughout the exterior, lined plexiglass headlight covers, simulated side pipes running along the body, porthole rear quarter windows, and a distinctive faux spare tire hump on the trunk lid. The interior featured leopard print upholstery that perfectly matched Willie's flamboyant personality, while a smaller rear window beneath a Landau top gave the car an even more distinctive silhouette. After its appearances in both Willie Dynamite and Magnum Force, the versatile Eldorado continued its screen career with a role in a 1974 episode of the supernatural television series Kolchak, The Night Stalker, starring Darren McGavin as a reporter investigating paranormal mysteries. The car eventually disappeared from Hollywood for decades, sitting unused in storage for over 40 years before being rediscovered and sold at auction, where it fetched considerable interest from collectors who recognized its unique place in cinema history. Fact 10. Based on real pimp's autobiography, Willie Dynamite drew significant inspiration from one of the most shocking and controversial memoirs ever published, Iceberg Slim's 1969 autobiography Pimp, The Story of My Life, which provided filmmakers with authentic details about the brutal realities of street prostitution. Robert Beck, who wrote under the pen name Iceberg Slim, had spent decades working as an actual pimp in Chicago, Milwaukee, and other cities before leaving that life behind and documenting his experiences in unflinching detail. The book became an underground sensation when it was first published, offering readers an insider's perspective on a world that had never been portrayed with such raw honesty in mainstream literature. Iceberg Slim's memoir described the psychological manipulation techniques pimps used to control women, the violent territorial disputes between rival operators, and the constant cat-and-mouse games with law enforcement that defined daily life in the prostitution business. Many of Willie Dynamite's most realistic elements can be traced directly back to situations and strategies that Iceberg Slim described in his autobiography. The film's portrayal of how Willie manages his stable of women, his business-like approach to maximizing profits, and his conflicts with other pimps all reflect the authentic experiences that Beck had documented in his book. Even Willie's flamboyant clothing style and luxury car preferences mirror the ostentatious displays of wealth that Iceberg Slim described as essential tools for maintaining respect and authority in the street hierarchy. The book's influence extended far beyond Willie Dynamite, inspiring numerous other blaxploitation films and eventually becoming required reading for hip-hop artists and writers who wanted to understand the origins of urban street culture. Iceberg Slim's brutal honesty about the damage caused by prostitution helped legitimize these stories as serious social commentary rather than simple exploitation entertainment, giving Willie Dynamite a foundation of genuine authenticity that elevated it above many other films in the genre. Fact 11. Zanuck. Brown was prepping the sting simultaneously. Richard Zanuck and David Brown were juggling two completely opposite film projects during the exact same period in 1973, demonstrating their remarkable ability to work across vastly different genres and budget levels within their newly formed production company. While they were developing Willie Dynamite, a low-budget blaxploitation film about a New York pimp and his street-level criminal enterprise, they were simultaneously preparing The Sting, an elaborate period caper film starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford that would become one of the most celebrated movies of the decade. The contrast between these two productions could hardly have been more dramatic in terms of scope, style, and subject matter. Willie Dynamite featured gritty urban locations, contemporary street slang, and controversial themes about prostitution and police corruption, while The Sting was a meticulously crafted homage to 1930s Chicago that required elaborate period costumes, sets, and the recreation of Depression-era con games. The budgets for the two films were also worlds apart, with Willie Dynamite operating as a modest investment compared to the significant resources required for The Sting's all-star cast and period production values. The timing reveals just how ambitious and versatile the Zanuck-Brown partnership was from its very beginning, as they successfully managed to bring both projects to completion and release them within months of each other. The Sting premiered in December 1973 and went on to win 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, while Willie Dynamite opened in Chicago just days earlier but received far less mainstream attention despite its cultural significance within the blaxploitation genre. This dual development strategy allowed Zanuck and Brown to hedge their bets across different market segments, pursuing both mainstream commercial success and niche audience appeal, while establishing their reputation as producers who could handle diverse material with equal skill and professionalism. Fact 12. Rare blaxploitation film without nudity. Willie Dynamite stands out as an extremely unusual entry in the blaxploitation genre because it contains absolutely no nudity and very little violence, making it one of the most restrained films in a category known for its explicit content and sensational exploitation elements. While most blaxploitation movies of the early 1970s relied heavily on scenes of undressed women and graphic violence to attract audiences and earn their adult ratings, Willie Dynamite took a completely different approach that focused on character development and social commentary instead. The film's rating came entirely from its frequent use of strong language, particularly profanity and street slang that was considered shocking for mainstream audiences at the time, along with scenes showing drug use and references to illegal activities. However, even though the story revolves around prostitution and Willie's management of 7 women working in Manhattan hotels, viewers never see any actual nudity or explicit sexual situations throughout the entire movie. This restraint was particularly remarkable given that the film was produced by Universal Pictures as a mainstream studio entry into the blaxploitation market, where competitors like American International Pictures were regularly pushing boundaries with increasingly graphic content. The decision to avoid exploitation elements may have reflected the influence of director Gilbert Moses, who came from a serious theatrical background and wanted to create a more thoughtful examination of urban street life rather than simple sensational entertainment. The minimal violence in Willie Dynamite consists mainly of a few brief fights, one throat-slashing scene, and some gunplay, but nothing approaching the brutal action sequences that characterized films like Black Caesar or Dolomite. This approach allowed the movie to focus more attention on Willie's psychological journey from arrogant criminal to broken man seeking redemption, creating a more character-driven narrative than most other films in the genre typically attempted. Fact 13. Diana Sands suggested her own replacement. In a remarkable act of professional grace and personal friendship, Diana Sands made one of her final decisions as an actress by personally recommending who should take over her role when she became too ill to continue working. After completing Willie Dynamite in early 1973, Sands had signed on to star in another film called Claudine, where she was set to play the title character opposite James Earl Jones in a drama about a single mother navigating welfare and relationships in Harlem. Filming on Claudine began in late August 1973, but Sands collapsed on set after working for only 1 week, forcing production to halt while she was rushed to a local hospital for emergency medical treatment. When doctors discovered during surgery that her pancreatic cancer had spread extensively throughout her abdomen, it became clear that she would be unable to return to complete the demanding leading role that required her to carry most of the film's dramatic weight. Rather than leaving the producers to scramble for a replacement, Sands took it upon herself to solve the casting crisis by suggesting her longtime friend Diane Carroll for the part. The two actresses had known each other since their teenage years at New York's Music and Art High School, where they had been classmates along with Billy D. Williams during the 1940s and early 1950s. They had maintained their friendship throughout their parallel careers in theater, television, and film. The producers immediately agreed to Sand's recommendation and successfully cast Carol in the role, allowing production to resume and ultimately creating one of Carol's most acclaimed film performances. Claudine went on to earn Carol an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress, making Sand's final professional act one that helped launch her friend to new heights of recognition and critical success in what became a deeply meaningful tribute to their enduring friendship. Fact 14. Director was Tony Award-nominated Broadway legend Gilbert Moses brought an exceptionally distinguished theatrical background to Willie Dynamite, having already established himself as one of the most important directors in African American theater before making his transition into film directing. Moses had earned a Tony Award nomination for his Broadway work and was considered a major figure in the cultural movement that was reshaping how Black stories were told on American stages during the 1960s and early 1970s. His theatrical credentials were particularly impressive because he had been instrumental in developing new works by some of the most significant African American playwrights of the era, helping to create a more authentic and powerful voice for Black theater that moved beyond stereotypes and superficial representations. This serious dramatic training brought an unusual level of artistic sophistication to Willie Dynamite, elevating what could have been a simple exploitation film into something more complex and socially conscious. Moses' approach to directing Willie Dynamite reflected his stage background, particularly in how he handled dialogue scenes with an almost Shakespearean attention to rhythm and delivery. The film's language, while remaining true to street authenticity, was delivered with a theatrical precision that set it apart from other blaxploitation movies of the period. His experience working with serious dramatic material allowed him to find deeper meaning in the story's examination of capitalism, exploitation, and urban survival. After Willie Dynamite, Moses would go on to direct episodes of the groundbreaking television miniseries Roots in 1977, which became one of the most watched and culturally significant programs in television history. His work on Roots demonstrated his continued commitment to telling African American stories with dignity and historical accuracy, making Willie Dynamite an important stepping stone in a career dedicated to authentic representation of Black experiences in American media. Fact 15. Inspired Black Dynamite's Pimp Council scene. Willie Dynamite's Pimp Council meeting scene became one of the most memorable and influential sequences in blaxploitation cinema, ultimately inspiring direct homage and parody in the 2009 comedy film Black Dynamite. The original scene features Bell, played by Roger Robinson, hosting a formal gathering where rival pimps discuss organizing their territories and business operations to avoid police interference, with Willie refusing to participate in their collective agreement because it would hurt his own profits. The scene stood out for its unique blend of street vernacular and pseudo-corporate language, as the pimps discuss collectivizing their operations and taking formal votes on business proposals while maintaining their flamboyant personas and territorial rivalries. The dialogue emphasized terms like free enterprise and capitalist principles, creating an absurd contrast between legitimate business concepts and illegal prostitution management that audiences found both compelling and unintentionally humorous. When Scott Sanders created Black Dynamite as a loving parody of 1970s blaxploitation films, he chose to recreate Willie Dynamite's Pimp Council scene almost exactly, understanding that it had become an iconic representation of the genre's most distinctive elements. The 2009 film's version features the same basic setup of rival pimps meeting to discuss territorial agreements, complete with formal voting procedures and business-like negotiations that mirror the original scene's structure and tone. The homage in Black Dynamite helped introduce Willie Dynamite to a new generation of viewers who might never have discovered the original 1974 film, demonstrating how certain scenes can transcend their original context to become part of popular culture mythology. The Pimp Council sequence has since been referenced in hip-hop music, television shows, and other films, cementing Willie Dynamite's influence on American entertainment and ensuring its continued relevance decades after its initial release.